We turn now to our cohort speakers. Our first speaker will be Dr. Charles Levon Cole III.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you all for the folks that drove, and I know the traffic was kind of crazy, so thank you for getting here. I know some of y'all probably had some anxiety around that, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna miss it. So thank you for being here, and I'm sure your families appreciate you coming. So I'm part of the largest Black cohort in the history of this doctoral program, ever. And what I want to say about that is that if you've done any type of formal education, whether it's undergrad, graduate, what you learn very quickly is that the academy doesn't love us. And what I mean by that is we just celebrated the 65th anniversary of Brown versus Board this past weekend. And in the most liberal state, in the richest country on the face of the planet, only 2 out of 10 Black kids can read. That's where we live right now. Like, that's not 60 years ago, that's today. You see, often the academic data about Black folks that grew up like me paints us as victims of these sad cases. Is usually like a woe is me type situation. And, you know, the teaching force in America is 80% white, mostly women. And the message is like, you got to go out and save these kids because they're doing so poorly. So I wanted to kind of change that, and I wanted to have things look a little bit different. And when I started the program, I was very clear, right? I wasn't coming to make friends or to bake pies, right? Like, I was coming on a mission. And I didn't just carry myself in here. I carried Chicago, where I was born, Kentucky, where I lived, and Oakland, where I grew up, and the shelters that I was raised in. So I met somebody while I was here, Dr. Marilyn Jones, and her and I kind of adopted each other throughout this process. And we pushed each other in our work to go really deep. And we had very, very personal dissertations that gave us the opportunity to be selfish and to actually be the one studying us, as opposed to being the lab rats with white folks in coats looking at you and studying you. And so I looked at Black men that came from incredibly rough circumstances, basically the crack epidemic, that overcame to reach the highest levels of attainment. So in my study, I had Black kids that grew up extremely impacted by the crack epidemic that now are all doctors themselves. And for the study, you have to change the names of your study subjects to protect their identity. So I wanted to make it really real for folks, and the pseudonyms that I chose were from my close friends and family, Donald, DeMarcus, and my cousin Antoine. So now you have these 3 Black men that now are doctors, and these 3 pseudonyms that I used, and those names are real names, and 2 of those folks were murdered, and one of those, my cousin, is a predicate felon. And my message that I wanted to really push out is that these 6 men were 96% similar. They grew up in the same places, even though it was all over the country. They experienced the same things, but there was a 4% difference, give or take, that led half of them to death and half of them to represent only less than 3% of the entire world that has doctorate degrees. So my message to the program and programs like this, and whoever ends up seeing this video, is that you gotta be bold and you gotta be good. What I mean by that is, for the folks that were hooded in this program yesterday, that's getting hooded today, and that will be hooded in the future, oftentimes we'll be the thing in the middle that helps determine what that 4% variance is. And are you leading folks to death, or are you leading them to life? So I want to leave you all with this. Normally, when you close your eyes and envision a doctor, there's a prototype that may pop in your head. Well, sometimes we wear Jordans. Sometimes we wear gold fronts. Sometimes we come from shelters. Sometimes we had guns in our cars under our laps. Sometimes we've had friends that have been shot, and some of them have been killed. And sometimes they have botched accents from Chicago, Kentucky, and Oakland. But I want to tell you, this is what a doctor both looks like and sounds like. Thank you very much.